Good morning and welcome. And we've moved on from Vicar will travel around the churches to Vicar will stay at home in this miserable weather that we're experiencing while this is being recorded. Thank you to Chris and Averill for coming to the vicarage to record this reflection. I've spent some time over the last few weeks thinking of the line that we all say in the Lord's Prayer of "Thy will be done," and what that actually means and how we adapt that into our day-to-day lives. Do we fully accept "Thy will be done," or do we try to tweak and change that into the best way that suits our life at that time? So let's see where this takes us. It is the song most frequently played at British funeral services. It's the most remade song in history. Can anybody guess what that is yet? I'll give you another clue, and I can hear you shouting over the airwaves. It was popularised by Frank Sinatra on his 1969 album. Can you guess yet? My Way. In the Philippines, My Way is so popular in karaoke bars that it has been declared responsible for a number of deaths where arguments over performance have degenerated into violence. And I did it my way. Yes, it was my way. I did it my way is the way of the world. It is not the way of Jesus. Jesus said, "Yet not as I will, but as you will." He prays, "May your will be done." He made no excuses. Jesus did it God's way. Moses, on the other hand, was another reluctant leader, and he tried to make excuses as to why he should not do what God was calling him to do. And just before we get into today's reading, just Moses' 5 excuses to give us a bedrock to where we're going today. Moses said, "You've got the wrong person." Moses says, "Who am I?" He felt inadequate. "I feel I am not good enough. I am not holy enough." Moses said, "You've got the wrong person. Why me?" God's reply is, "I will be with you," and that is all that matters. Moses' second excuse, "I'm not ready yet." Moses says, "What shall I tell them?" He felt uninformed. He felt that he did not know what he would have to say and wouldn't be able to answer all the questions. He thought he would stumble. God said, "This is what you are to say." God will give you the message at the right time. Moses' third excuse, "I might fail." Moses says, "What happens if it all goes wrong? It might not work out. What if they do not believe me or listen and say, 'The Lord did not appear to you'?" God's answer was, "I will show you in my power." Moses' fourth excuse, "I do not have the skills." Moses says, "I do not have the right gifts. I've never been eloquent. I am slow of speech and tongue." It seems that Moses might have had a stutter or some other form of speech impediment. "I speak with faltering lips." God said, "I will help you to speak. I will teach you what to say." God's strength is made perfect in weakness. Moses' fifth excuse, "Someone else will do it." Moses says, please send someone else to do it. It is easy to think someone else is better than me. God was not pleased with Moses, but he said he would send Aaron with him. I will help you both to speak and teach you what to do. Eventually, Moses agreed to go God's way and followed God's call. Do we see them excuses in ourselves sometimes? I'm sure I see them excuses in myself sometimes. And there's not enough time in this reflection to go through every character in the Bible who tried to choose their own way. But I suppose one that does jump out, and as I've said, I'm not going to go into any great depths, is the story of Jonah. Obviously trying to go his way until God took control. So do we say Jesus' way or our way? That's a difficult question. So this morning's reading, or whatever time you are looking at this reflection, a reading from Matthew's Gospel, towards the end of Matthew's Gospel, Matthew 26. Jesus predicts Peter's denial. Then Jesus told them, this very night you will all fall away on account of me, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee. Peter replied, even if all fall away on account of you, I never will. Truly I tell you, Jesus answered, this very night, before the cock crows, you will disown me 3 times. But Peter declared, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And all the other disciples said the same. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane and said to them, sit here while I go over there to pray. He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, my Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. Couldn't you men keep watch for me for 1 hour? He asked Peter. Watch and pray that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went away a second time and prayed, my Father, if it is possible for this cup to be taken unless I drink it, may your will be done. When he came back, he again found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. So he said to them and left them once more and prayed a 3rd time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come. The Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer. So, a well-known passage to us all. The way of Jesus is to say to God, not my way, but your way. Jesus not only taught us to pray, your will be done, he also prayed it himself. My Father, if there's any way, get me out of this. But please, not what I want, but you want, as the message records it. A second time he prayed, my Father, if there's no other way than this, drinking this cup to the dregs, I'm ready. Do it your way. These are not prayers of resignation, but prayers of great courage, being willing to follow God's way no matter what. In this passage, we see Jesus' humanity. He begins to show grief and distress and was deeply depressed. He has his 3 closest friends with him, the same 3 that saw Jesus in divine glory at the Transfiguration, and they now see Jesus in the depths of human sorrow. He prays for God the Father to show him if there is any alternative. Nevertheless, he is willing to do the Father's will, whatever the cost. For Jesus, the cost was a totally different order to anything that we face. He took the sins of the whole world on his shoulders. Hence his soul was overwhelmed with sorrow. 3 times Jesus prays for this cup to be taken from him. The cup refers to his impending suffering and death. Just before going to the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus spoke of the cup at the Passover meal, representing his blood poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. More than that, as it is often the case in the Old Testament, the cup includes reference to God's wrath. For example, in Isaiah and Habakkuk. On the cross, Jesus took the cup in your place. He took the cup of God's wrath in our place. When you are deeply depressed, overwhelmed with sorrow, troubled, or in the midst of tough times, it is such an encouragement to know that Jesus experienced all that we faced, and far, far more. He knows what you and I and all of us are going through, and we can follow his example by submitting our ways to God. There is an amazing contrast between what took place in the Garden of Gethsemane and in the Garden of Eden. 2 gardens, 2 different outcomes. The Garden of Eden, not your way, but mine, was the response of Adam and Eve to God in that first garden. However, in the second garden, not my way, but yours, was Jesus' prayer to the Father. Doing it God's way meant suffering and death, but it brought redemption for the whole world. So I continue to challenge myself. I continue to challenge not my way, but yours. And I do challenge, and I offer that challenge to us all. How far do we want to go with that? How far do we want to be challenged? How far, when we say them words, we say them so often in the Lord's Prayer, as it is in heaven, not my will but yours. Your kingdom come, your will be done. We say it so often in services. We say it every Eucharist. We say it in our prayers, daily prayers. But what does that truly mean? It's a daily task to hope and pray that we follow the will of God. Just close with a short prayer. Lord, help me to follow your example and pray. Yet not as I will, but as you will. And may your will be done. Amen.